ශ්‍රී ලංකා ජනාධිපති අතිගරු මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමනි, ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය කටයුතු පිළිබඳ ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ අමාත්‍ය ගරු සරත් අමුණගම මැතිතුමනි, ආර්ථික සංවර්ධන අමාත්‍ය ගරු බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමනි, මුදල් නියෝජ්‍ය අමාත්‍ය ගරු ගීතාංජලි ගුණවර්ධන මැතිතුමනි, ජනාධිපති ලේකම් ලලිත් විරතුංග මැතිතුමා ඇතුළු සියලුම රජයේ නිලධාරි මහත්ම මහත්මියනි, අනිකුත් සම්භාවනීය අමුත්තනි, මිත්‍රවරුනි, මා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමාව ඉතාමත්ම ආදරෙන් සහ භක්තියකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවේ පරිශ්‍රයට වැඩම කිරීම සපත් වීම පිළිබඳව අපි ස්තුතිය පුද නමනවා. එතුමා ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවට පැමිණි 6 වෙනි වතාවයි මේ. හැම අවුරුද්දෙම ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවේ වාර්තාව ලබා ගැනීමට එතුමා අපට ඉතා විශාල ශක්තියක් සහ ශක්තියක් ලබා දීලා තිනවා මේ පරිශ්‍රයට පැමිණලා අපේ මහා බැංකු වාර්තාව ලබා ගැනීම ගැන මම එතුමාට මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල්‍ය කටයුතු පිළිබඳ ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ අමාත්‍ය සරත් අමුණගම මැතිතුමාටත්, ආර්ථික සංවර්ධන අමාත්‍ය ගරු බැසිල් රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාටත්, මුදල් නියෝජ්‍ය අමාත්‍ය ගරු ගීතාංජලි ගුණවර්ධන මැතිතුමාටත් මා ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. මුලින්ම මම ජනාධිපති ලේකම් ලලිත් විරතුංග මැතිතුමාටත්, මුදල් මණ්ඩලයේ සමාජිකයන්ටත් ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙන ගමන්ම විදේශගත වී සිටින නිසා අද මේ අවස්ථාවට පැමිණීමට නොහැකිවත් මෙම කාර්යය වෙනුවෙන් Tamanගේ මහඟු දායකත්වයේ සැපයූ භාණ්ඩාගාර ලේකම් ආචාර්ය පී.බී. ජයසුන්දර මහතාටත් එතුමාගේ කාර්ය මණ්ඩලයටත් මා ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. තවදුරටත් මා ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙන්න කීප දිනක ඉන්නවා. ඒ අතර ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවේ නියෝජ්‍ය අධිපතිතුමන් සහ නියෝජ්‍ය අධිපතිතුමිය, මුදල් ප්‍රතිපත්ති උපදේශක කමිටුවේ සහ මුදල් පද්ධති ස්ථායීතා උපදේශන කමිටුවේ සහ ණය ශ්‍රේණිගත කිරීමේ උපදේශක කමිටුවේ සමාජිකයන්ටත්, විශේෂඥ කණ්ඩායමේ සමාජිකයන්ටත්, දත්ත සහ තොරතුරු සපයීමෙන් අපහාට උපකාර කළ සියලුම අමාත්‍යාංශවල සහ පුද්ගලික අංශයේ නිලධාරීන්, බැංකු සහ අනිකුත් මූල්‍ය ආයතන නිලධාරීන්ටත් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම අපේ රටේ ඉලක්කයන් ළඟා කර ගැනීම සඳහා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ආර්ථිකයේ හැසිරු වූ සියලුම පාර්ශවයන්ටත්, සියලුම මහා බැංකු නිලධාරීන්ටත්, විශේෂයෙන්ම ආර්ථික පර්යේෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ අධ්‍යක්ෂකතා ස්වර්ණ ගුණරත්න මහත්මියටත්, ඒ දෙපාර්තමේන්තු සියලු නිලධාරීන්ටත්, මාධ්‍යවේදීන් සියලු දෙනාටමත් අපි මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. අපේ රටේ නූතන ඉතිහාසය ලියනකොට ඒ ඉතිහාසයේ මූලික ග්‍රන්ථයක් වන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහා බැංකුවේ විසින් නිකුත් කරන මේ වාර්තාව. I believe on many occasions when history is written in a country, one of the prime documents that would be used in the writing of history many years later would be the annual report that is published by the central bank. So in that sense, what has been handed over to His Excellency the President today is a historic document which, as was announced, is a culmination of many efforts of many people who have put in a lot of work in order to present that to you today. As was mentioned, the English version has about 690 pages, the Sinhala version about 710 pages, and the Tamil version also about 700 pages, all of which has been carefully crafted and presented to you so that it makes your life easy in order to make decisions in relation to the economy a lot easier. Our Director Economic Research explained the salient features of the economy. So I will not go into it in depth once again, but I would like to also touch on a few areas which I believe are of relevance today. We had a strong growth momentum in all sectors of the economy. Inflation was steadied at mid-single digits. We had a comparatively low interest rate regime during the year. The savings and investments have been on a steady growth path. The external trade in our country has been buoyant, although, as was explained by the Direct Economic Research, The trade deficit widened substantially during the year as a result of the huge import demand, also fueled by a very high credit growth, which we have taken steps now to address. Foreign reserves have been at comfortable levels, notwithstanding many other contentions to the contrary. Although the supply has been high during the latter stages of the year, we have been able to maintain reserves at a comfortable level. A stable exchange rate was maintained. ස්ථායි විනිමය අනුපාතයක් අපිට පවත්වා ගැනීමට හැකි වුණා. Although some depreciation pressure has been also seen during the first few months of this year. Our sovereign credit ratings, our doing business ratings, the FDIs have all been on the increase. We have had a banking sector which has been steady and stable. The growth in credit to the government as well as to the private sector has been higher than expected, but certain policy measures, as I said earlier, have been put in place to address that issue. There has been a continuation of the fiscal consolidation process where the government has committed itself to a lower fiscal deficit and have been able to also ensure that that is done. There has been a huge improvement in infrastructure right across the country. I believe many people who have come from abroad have been able to see this major difference in our infrastructure status in our country. As Swarna mentioned, the lowest unemployment level has been recorded in our country. Stock market, although not in very buoyant terms, has been at reasonable levels. There has been a significant reduction in poverty, and the debt to GDP ratio has come down to the lowest level, sir, in the last 27 years. Let me touch on a few points in relation to the central bank. We are responsible for the maintenance of economic and price stability and the maintenance of the financial system stability. So that is measured in many ways, and I would like to touch on how that has been done. Your Excellency, during the past 38 months, Sri Lanka's inflation has been at single-digit levels. And in the past, the longest ever period in which Sri Lanka's inflation has been in single digits has been 23 months. And that was from August 1998 to June 2000. At no other time have we had a longer period of inflation at single-digit levels. So this particular period that we are going through now, where we have had 38 months of single-digit inflation, is the highest ever in our post-liberalization history. අපේ රටේ උද්දමනය කිසි විටක මාස 38ක පමණ කාලයක් තුලදී තනි ඉලක්කමක තිබිලා නැහැ. මීට පෙර තනි ඉලක්කමක තිබිලා තිබෙන්නේ දිගුම කාලය අගෝස්තු මාසයේ 1998 අගෝස්තු මාසයේ සිට 2006 ජූනි මාසයේ තෙක් පමණයි. ඊට සෑම අවස්ථාවකදීම අපේ රටේ උද්දමනය තිබිලා තියෙන්නේ 10%කට වඩා වැඩි අගයක. ඒ නිසා මේ යුගය අපිට පුළුවන් වෙලා තිබෙනවා 10%ට වඩා අඩු උද්දමනයේ මට්ටමක තබා ගැනීමට. එය මේ සටහනේ ඉතා පැහැදිලි ලෙස පෙන්වලා දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ ගමන්ම ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට හැකි වෙලා තිබෙනවා ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ මූල්‍ය පද්ධතිය ඉතාමත්ම ස්ථායි භාවයකින් පවත්වාගෙන යාමට. අපිට මතකයි 1989 සහ 90 දී මූල්‍ය සමාගම් 13ක් කඩා වැටුණා. ඒ ගමන් 2002 දී එක බැංකුවක් කඩා වැටුණා. ඒ වුණාට මේ යුගය තුලදී 2006 සිට කිසිම විටක කිසිම ආයතනයක් කඩා වැටෙන්නේ, ඒ කියන්නේ ලියාපදිංචි වී ආයතනයක් කඩා වැටෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්නට අපිට පුළුවන් වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ ගමන්ම ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහ බැංකුවේ කාර්යයන් පිළිබඳව වචන ස්වල්පයක් කීමට අවශ්‍යයි. The central bank, on behalf of the government, manages the public debt, which is today over 5.5 trillion rupees. It also carries out the exchange control function on behalf of the government. And the central bank manages official reserves of the country, which is currently over $6.1 billion. It manages the EPF, which is over 1,000 billion rupees. The central bank also issues and manages the currency in circulation, presently in the sum of about 347 billion rupees. It supervises 33 banks, 42 non-financial institutions. The central bank also ensures the stability of markets, the call money markets, the forex markets, the treasury bills and bonds markets. It acts as the economic advisor to the government, carries out a large number of regional development projects, issues the annual report as we have done today, and several other statutory publications, issues hundreds of non-statutory publications and press statements. We maintain a website, which is one of the most popular websites in the country, which has more than 150,000 hits average per day. We maintain transparency by meeting the media regularly. We will, in fact, have another press conference today after this event. And we provide the payment platform where millions of transactions valued at several trillions of rupees takes place. Now, the reason why I did want to mention all these factors, Your Excellency, is that on many occasions, we see certain, sometimes opponents of our country, as well as those who have different viewpoints, expressing the view that the central bank sometimes is not doing its job. So I thought it may be useful for us to also set out in detail as to what the central bank does. And we also have a talented as well as a very well experienced and qualified staff to carry out this work. We have 645 qualified people, 183 in economics, 91 in management, 139 in banking, finance, and accounting. In maths and IT and science, we have 83 persons with PhDs, with master's degrees, bachelor's degrees, and other professional qualifications. Law, we have 32, and other qualifications, 117. Sometimes we do hear about one or two economists who pretend that they are the only ones who know economics in this country. So I thought it may be useful for us to also set out that we have so many qualified staff in our own ranks who have studied at the best universities in the world and who have also been trained in the best universities as well as institutions in the world, who are giving guidance and policy advice to us, as well as through us to you as well, Your Excellency, and to the Minister. Having said that, we also have a research capability which is unparalleled in the country. We have ample opportunities that we provide to our staff to have debate and discussion. And we also refer many of our points to the private sector from whom we also get advice, and that is something that we respect and value as well. The Monetary Board, and I must pay tribute to the Monetary Board members, to Dr. Jayasundara, Mr. Nimal Velgama, Mr. Neelu Mugilia, and Mrs. Ramanathan, who meet once every 2 weeks. And that is also a big sacrifice that they make on behalf of the country, and we appreciate that as well. Let me now, having said that about the central bank, and I indulge your time for that because I think it is necessary to set the record straight on that as well. And I would like to just touch on a few key areas in relation to our economy. 2011 will be a historic year for our country because we have recorded a growth of 8.3% on the back of a 8% growth in the previous year. Not once in our history have we been able to have an 8% growth on another 8% growth. It has always been two instances that we have had 8% growth. It has been followed by a low growth thereafter. But fortunately this year, under the guidance of His Excellency the President and his economic team, we have been able to record this huge success, which I believe is one of the first time, it is the first time in our history that we have been able to do that. And also these achievements, Your Excellency, has been first on many fronts. The services recorded its highest growth in 46 years. The fisheries recorded its highest growth in 39 years. The industry recorded its highest growth in 33 years. Construction recorded its highest growth in 31 years. The import trade recorded its highest growth in 18 years. The small industries, the industry where we have been very keen and His Excellency has been very keen to promote, recorded its highest growth in 14 years. The hotels and restaurants recorded its second highest growth in 12 years, except after the post-tsunami where it was on a low base. Manufacturing recorded its highest growth in 11 years. Factory industry, the highest growth in 11 years. And the export trade recorded its highest growth in 11 years. So we must pay tribute to the people of our country, to the private sector, to the government, and to all others who have been able to have this growth recorded, which has been the platform on which this growth has been achieved in our country. Let me also very briefly touch upon the reserve situation, because that is one of the areas which is the responsibility of the central bank. Over the past several years, our reserves have been consistently near or over $6 billion. If you see this graph, you would find that the first time that Sri Lanka exceeded $3 billion was in 2007. Before this, we have not even had $3 billion. We have just been slightly above $2 billion. And today, some people find fault with us saying that we have only $6 billion. But we have not had anywhere close to that for many, many years. Since our liberalization of the economy, this graph shows you very clearly as to where our reserves have been and where we have been able to develop, and at what stage that our reserves have started building up as well. Last year, yes, we did have some reduction in the reserves, but that was again deliberately done in order to ensure that we have stability. To have stability, sometimes there are certain spaces that we use within an economy to ensure that the stability is maintained. And we have done that as well, Your Excellency. During the last 2 months, in 2012, you would see from this graph that even before the receipt of the 8th tranche from the IMF, which happened in April of this year, that the reserve build-up has taken place, and we have seen the reserves building up right up to the period at which the IMF tranche also came in, and now it has substantially gone beyond the $6 billion mark. So this, again, was something that I want to mention today, because sometimes various parties attempt to show that Sri Lanka is having a huge crisis, and in fact, I saw recently some of the newspaper reports as well as some editorials which said that Sri Lanka is in a huge, deep crisis, which I want to ensure is not the situation, and people can understand that it is sometimes hyped up by various others. Let me also very quickly talk to you about the medium-term prospects of the Sri Lanka economy. As you know, the real sector has been promising. We would see the GDP growth on target to reach the $4,000 per capita income as envisaged in the Mahinda Chintana vision for the future. We would see the GDP at market levels, market prices reaching about 7.5 trillion rupees by the end of this year. The per capita income would rise to around $2,900. And we have had to see a slight reduction in our growth momentum because of the fact that certain measures were taken to reduce the trade deficit, which will also mean that the growth momentum would be reduced to some extent, and we may not have 8% growth this year. We would probably be seeing a growth of about 7.2%, sir, slightly less than what was envisaged in the past. The banking sector is moving towards gearing itself to a $100 billion economy, so that we will use the 5-hub concept to launch this growth. And the recent interventions in the external sector will ensure that Sri Lanka's deficit in the balance of payments of last year will be converted into a surplus this year. And according to the results that we will be seeing by the end of this year, if we are able to maintain this momentum, we would be able to have an overall balance of about $1.2 billion by the end of this year as our balance of payments surplus. And Sri Lanka would see new areas of investment coming into the country. The banks are positioning itself to have the Tier 2 capital inflows, which has also started already. We would be seeing tourism showing very good results. The expatriate workers' remittances also are going to show an increase this year. And we are also seeing new inflows coming into the Sri Lankan stock market as well. The monetary sector will need the close cooperation of the government, and we believe that the maintenance of the net credit to government as well as the private sector at the levels that has been envisaged would be vital in order to maintain the inflation at the current levels, and also to ensure that the trade deficit is dealt with. And we are also hoping that the fiscal consolidation that has been put in place by the government would also be encouraged this year, and that we would be able to maintain those figures as already projected in the budget of His Excellency the President that was presented last year. Your Excellency, we would see some challenges, as was mentioned by our Director Economics Research. This year is going to be also another challenging year because of the oil price uncertainties, the sanctions that could be imposed by various countries on various other countries, which could have an impact on us, the Eurozone crisis, the political uncertainties of many countries in the world, and the possible outbreak of hostilities, all of which will be factored into our decision-making process in order to ensure that we would be able to maintain our equilibrium in our overall economic march forward. As I said, 2011 was a challenging year, and 2012 will also be challenging, but we can take comfort that this year we were able to deliver on many other areas that we had set out to do. And one of the reasons why that was possible was because we built spaces within the economy in order to ensure that we use some of the spaces in times of stress that can come at any time in the world. අපි ගිය අවුරුදු තුලදී අතිකරු ජනාධිපතිතුමනි අපේ ආර්ථිකයේ ඇතැම් සාර්ව ආර්ථික සිද්ධාන්ත හරහා යම් අවකාශ ඇති කරගන්නට අපිට හැකි වෙලා තිබෙනවා. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් අපි ගත්තොත් අපේ රටේ සංචිත විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා නම් සංචිත යම් ආකාරයකට අඩු වුණත් අපිට ලොකු ගැටලුවක් වන්නේ නැහැ. අපේ ආර්ථිකයේ වර්ධන වේගය ඉහළ අගයක තිබෙනවා නම් එම ඉහළ අගය යම් කිසි කොටසකට හරි අඩු කරගත්තා නම් ඒ ලොකු බාධාවක් සිදු වෙන්නේ නැහැ අපේ ආර්ථික ගමනට. එවැනි අවකාශයන් අපිට අපේ රටේ ආර්ථිකයේ හරි ගස්සා ගැනීමට පුළුවන් වීම නිසා අද අපිට වඩාත් විශ්වාසයකින් අපේ ආර්ථිකයේ දිස බලා ගැනීමට හැකි වෙලා තිනවා. ඒ කටයුත්ත කර ගැනීම සඳහා ඔබතුමා අප සියලු දෙනාටම දුන් නායකත්වය, දුන් උපදෙස් අපි මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අගය කරන බවත් මතක් කර දිය යුතුයි. ඒ ගමන්ම අප රටේ විශාල සේවයක් ඔබතුමා කරලා තියෙන බව අපි දන්නවා අපේ යුද්ධය නිමා කිරීම සඳහා. ඒ වුණාට පසුගිය දවස් අවුරුදු දෙක තුලදී ඊටමත් දැවැන්ත මෙහෙවරක් අපේ රටට කරලා තිබෙනවා. මේ රටේ ආර්ථික වර්ධනය 8%ක සහ ඊට 8%ට වඩා වැඩි වර්ධන වේගයක් අපිට පවත්වා ගැනීමට උපදෙස් සහ නායකත්වය ලබා දීම පිළිබඳව. ඒ නිසා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ඔබතුමාට අපි ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා. එවැනි කාර්යභාරයක් අපිට කරලා දීම වෙනුවෙන් අපේ රට වෙනුවෙන්. ඒ ගමන්ම ඉදිරියේදීත් ශ්‍රී ලංකා මහ බැංකුව මේ කාර්යය වෙනුවෙන් අපේ සම්පූර්ණ සහයෝගය ලබා දෙන බවත් ප්‍රකාශ කරමින් ඉදිරි වසර කිහිපය තුළදී අපේ රටේ මේ සංවර්ධනයට අපි ඊටමත් උනන්දුවකින් සහයෝගය දෙන බවත් ප්‍රකාශ කරමින් ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම ඊටමත් සුබ දවසක් වේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමින් මගේ වචන ස්වල්පය අවසන් කරනවා.